Hi, everybody. Welcome to studioADI. Thanks for tuning in. If you're already a subscriber, thank you. If you're not a subscriber, what are you waiting for? We have with us today one of the best sculptors and creature designers in the practical effects creature biz. He's worked for us for many, many years, and as well as for a lot of other studios. And we'd like to introduce him to you. His name is Steve Cotch.
They were waiting to see Steve Wang, actually, after that introduction. Sorry.
See, this is inside baseball here. Like this, Steve Koch is a guy that most people don't know about, but you've probably seen his work. So we wanted to talk to you a little bit about that.
Cool.
So, Steve, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Long Island, New York.
Oh, yeah?
I came out here to go to film school in 1980, something like that.
You're a USC guy, right?
USC Film School, yeah.
Right. I was a UCLA film school
Yeah.
guy. So that's kind of why you're kind of snooty?
We made fun of you guys, yeah, pretty much. Well, yeah.
Of course you did.
You mean the
You guys did like the artsy stuff.
You mean the guys
UCLA.
that you guys that finished school made fun of the guys that didn't?
Well, that too.
Tom went to film school.
I didn't finish.
As I recall, your first jobs was it like San Diego Dynamation?
Dynamation, yeah, that was in Santa Ana, actually, California.
Santa Ana.
Yeah,
That's where I grew up.
Oh,
I lived
didn't know.
in Santa Ana.
I'm sorry. That's bad.
But you also,
That's nice.
but you also, right? You brought with you from back on Long Island your animated film, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I came out to go to film school, and I was into stop motion animation. Is that what you mean? Like I just
that's the only thing I really want to talk about.
yeah,
Stop motion.
Yeah, stop motion film. So that's what got me interested in all this kind of work in the first place.
So the first, what was the first project you worked with us on?
First thing I worked on here was Jumanji. I helped to paint the lion.
Oh, okay.
with
Oh,
Bob-
that's
Bob
right.
Clark.
That's right. Because when you came over, you were like the stop motion guy. Had you worked at the Kyoto Brothers also?
Kyoto Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple other places.
I'm remembering it now.
Yeah.
But you had a great film that you tell us about.
Oh, you thinking of Shortcut?
The short.
Shortcut was a short film that I made when I was like 17,
Yeah.
18, something like that. It combined stop motion and live action
Yeah.
with like front projection.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
I thought was pretty smart to figure that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was.
So Tom and I are big stop motion fans, and Steve came by ADI with this this film that was like, it had all this sophisticated stuff in it. We're like, what the hell? It was like, even though none of us are teenagers anymore, you had that momentary flush of like competition with the guy who had who knew how to do front projection and stuff. It's kind of like when you would read Cinemagic magazine, you'd see some guy who'd made a modified aerial brace or something. That was Tom Woodruff, by the way. I'm making him,
nice.
yeah. Or guys like Ted Ray or something who were like doing things that were well beyond what a teenager should be doing.
Really cool
Anyway,
stuff.
that's the kind of
And
thing.
Shortcut was written up in Cinemagic, actually.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I think number
Okay.
11, I think.
Yeah. Good. So that was early days stuff. And then you had Firefly Marsh also. And by that you did the effects for it, right?
Yeah, I shot it and did the effects for it.
And it had you had like a water tank, or was that just a pool?
Yeah, it was a story about a plesiosaur in a lake. So we didn't do stop motion, but we did puppets.
Yeah.
Puppet work.
So since then, of course, you've expanded your toolkit, and you started on Jumanji, as you said, and then what was the next one?
Starship Troopers, Alien Resurrection.
And on Starship Troopers, you worked on the big warrior bug, right?
Yeah, a lot of time on
Sculpture.
the Warrior Bug and Brain Bug Face.
The brain bug face, that's right.
Little odds and ends, other things
Right,
too.
and then overlapping Starship Troopers was Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, it started afterwards, I think.
Right.
But
And also overlapping, moving into this shop from the other shop,
Yes.
because that was a big deal because we had already started sculptures on. I think you and the rest of the guys were already off in Wyoming shooting Starship, and then we were here starting. I think we even started the sculpture of this guy and
we
had
did.
to load it up in a truck, move it over here. We
right.
basically had a big empty shop out there that we were working in and trying to not lose any time on
Yeah,
it.
I remember Steve was sculpting an egg. Weren't there two different eggs?
Yeah.
Two different size
That's right,
eggs.
two
We
different
sculpted
eggs.
one, and they were like, "Oh, make it smaller."
Yeah.
So you had to sculpt another one.
I think John Brown did the one that's in the movie.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I did the first one. It actually got molded and everything.
It did,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So- and then this one you worked on with
Yes.
Jeff Boccaccio?
With Jeff Boccaccio, John Brown also,
Oh, yeah.
and it was Giorgio's design, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, George, you had the little gunslinger guy, right?
Yeah, it's really cool.
And did you sculpt the head?
I didn't sculpt the head. I think Jordu did. It might have been sculpted twice, I think.
Oh,
I can't
really?
quite remember who did the first time.
Why do we keep changing
pattern.
sculptures?
Because if you don't do it wrong, you don't know when it's right.
That's true. That's true.
Steve also sculpted the big newborn too.
Yeah, that's true. That was quite a.
That was spectacular. Sculpture.
That might be another video.
Okay.
If you guys are interested, we'll see how the comments go. But if you guys are interested, we could do another video on that newborn because it's its own whole thing that has people split, I think.
Yeah.
But so Steve, this design, when we say that Jordu designed it, really what that means is he did a maquette and they got approved and took us to the next step of sculpture, which is also design. So that's why I always consider guys like you designing sculptures. It's not like we're just handing it over to a guy and say, do this. He's not a machine, right? He's bringing to it his sensibilities and his artistry. And that's what we like about including the sculptor as part of the design phase, as opposed to just doing like a piece of Photoshop art or a ZBrush model, and that's it, it's done. There's nothing more to do. It kind of cuts artists out of the process, artists like Steve, who is also quite a skilled Photoshop guy, because we've used you that way.
But times have changed. Times have changed a lot because there are now so many productions, even productions that we are on these days, where the designs are coming from the design food court, where the producers, without even talking about how the thing is going to be done to the people that are going to be building it, or in some cases not even talking to the director, they will go to some established houses, say, get us some designs for this. And what the producer feels is he doesn't understand the difference between concept, which is a feeling for what this thing should be or can evoke in the minds of the audience, and a blueprint. And he thinks he's got a blueprint, so he thinks he comes over, throws it on the table, and in a week or two, we have built exactly what that thing is, and it will do exactly what is required in terms of the on-screen persona. And that to me is one of the biggest fallacies and one of the biggest backward steps I think the art has taken in terms of what we're able to produce and create.
Yeah, there's a bit of a bottleneck there. But so what you're alluding to is that sometimes, in the process we get a mandate, or we're being dictated to. This is what it has to be. It has to, blah, 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 execute. And other times we're invited in much more, and we get to sort of let our opinions and imaginations run a little more wild. And that's at the shop owner level, right? But at the sculptor level, the person, the artist in the sculptor's seat, in the who's making some design decisions there. You also have bosses. In this case, when you work for us, you have two bosses, and that can't be easy, Steve Cotch.
That's true. Actually, on Alien Resurrection, I think it seemed like there were four of you, because there was also Andy Schoenberg and Yuri.
Oh.
So every morning, the four of you would come around. It's pretty much happened every morning. Would come around and each have, your critiques. But then what you guys maybe didn't know is after you went back to your offices, there were still Yuri and Andy, who would continue for the rest of the day to be like, no, make sure you get that comment I gave you there. So it was actually a tricky one.
No wonder the egg was sculpted twice and the head was sculpted twice. So, but it's not that way now, is it?
No,
how do we run things now? I'm not sure.
It's a little bit looser now.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you run things now? I don't know.
But you've worked at a lot of places.
Input, yeah.
You've worked at a lot of places, right? And presumably some jobs that you sort of left alone and given very little information. Other times you're...
That's true. Yeah, it just depends on who you're working for, how much input you get. Some people, they do let you run with things, and others are much tighter.
Steve is known to be a very even-keeled guy. He's very easy to work with, but he's not at all a pushover. There will be times where he will just come up and say, he'll kind of say, I just have to tell you that what you're doing is absolutely wrong, right? And then we have a conversation.
You want, right?
Right?
I'll do it however you want.
That's how it starts, yeah.
But, I'm not really sure this is the best way to do this.
Yeah, that's
It's like our accountant. When we ask our accountant to do something, they'll say, I can do whatever you want, but here's what you have to do legally. And we kind of have to listen to that.
So how often, like if you were to tell someone who's like, I want to be a sculptor and I want to sculpt around at shops and all that kind of stuff, what are the main things that you have to be aware of or adjust in your thinking? Like, because if you came out of stop motion, you came out of a Ray Harryhausen one-man band kind of world, right?
Right, yeah.
And then you come into a shop and it's an adjustment.
Right. Yeah, when I was a kid, I thought, I'm going to be just like Ray Harryhausen. I'll help come up with the ideas for films and then be the guy who does the special effects. And you realize, it doesn't really work that way anymore. Mm-hmm. But same thing for being a sculptor. You do have to just, I've seen it happen where people want to just kind of put their own style into everything they sculpt, and that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. And so I'm always been, you kind of have to kind of feel the water, see how things are going, see what other people have done around you.
And that's a good
and
point.
Try to figure that all into it.
And that's a good point, because when you mentioned that we come around every morning, I still think that's an important aspect of if you're going to come to ADI, you're going to get a certain look. And again, it's not about an ego thing, but part of that look is devising which elements are the strongest elements, whether they come from you or this sculptor or that sculptor, and making sure that in keeping everybody working, because I think artistically it is an important thing to give the person some leeway, right? So they don't feel like they're so bottlenecked or painted into a corner that they just can't function. You just can't function. But it's important, like you said, everybody has a style, and what's important for us is that style throughout a film is consistent, because we don't want one alien looking like, it's very heavy design in one way and then some other aspect not being congruent or matching. And you're very good about that, and I think a lot of other artists are very good about it when it's explained to them. I like to think that we don't just come through and change things for no apparent reason.
But we've changed. We're older now, and it didn't used to be that way, maybe. Or did it, Steve? Why don't you tell YouTube? How was it with Tom and Alec when we were young, when we were fiery?
Well, it's
has
true.
it changed?
I wasn't there at the very beginning. I wish I could have worked on Tremors or something like that. You guys were really hands-on.
You would have been perfect,
gung-ho.
actually, on that show, because it's so realism-based.
I still think that's some of the best stuff you guys have done. I love the Tremors creatures. Great. Really great.
But so, like, have you seen it change the way we do things? I'm just curious, actually. I was being facetious a moment. I'm not now.
Well, no, not so much. I mean, I think maybe in some ways you were a little more involved in day-to-day design work that the sculptors are doing. Maybe you backed off a little bit, which I don't mind. That's good, But I understand that issue that you don't want everybody doing their own thing. So.
I feel like we have in backing off. It's because a certain amount of those reins have been taken out of our hands, and I think some of our administration comes down to saying, okay, here's the drawings we got. Make sure we stick with this drawing. It's basically stuff that you yourself can do, but we have to make sure that somebody else's plans, somebody else's ideas are being adhered to.
The other thing I feel is that we now have a group of artists that we've been working with for 20 and more years, and you develop a shorthand of communication, and you don't necessarily need to keep someone within the parameters, because they know the drill. Like I think almost everybody out there has been with us for a number of years. There are some new faces out there, but that's also something where you have to. It's almost like when we're not teaching anyone to ice skate, right? You're directing. Somebody said that you don't want to have to, if you're directing the ice capades, you don't want to have to teach people to ice skate, right? So it becomes sort of like that quote that the Coen brothers have about actors. They say, we've never had to direct an actor. You get good people, good talented people, and let them do their thing. And as long as it's within the parameters, that there can be great success. It's when it starts going outside the...
Yeah, I was just going to say, you guys were good. I always thought you guys were good at being able to figure out who should be doing what. And in me in particular, as I was, earlier in the game back, 15, 20 years ago, I wasn't always getting to sculpt, the heads of the most featured parts of things. But I kind of realized, well, there's a reason for that, because there is somebody better at that. I still got to do cool stuff. And then over time, hopefully I've gotten better, get to do more some of the stuff that gets featured.
What are some of the favorite sculptures that you work on?
Well, I always loved Starship Troopers. I mean, that's my kind of thing to do. These giant bugs, I just thought those were fantastic.
That's amazing, because you are such an excellent, subtle appliance sculptor, human-based.
Yeah, there's a certain enjoyment I get out of sculpting makeups because of that. There's sort of a technical aspect, an artistic aspect. But what I love the most are more creature things.
Goes back to your stop motion.
Going back to that. But I know that the makeup stuff is what's going to be around probably the longest. A lot of the big mechanical monster stuff has gone away over time.
Right.
And I want to be good at doing the makeups too, because I know that that's going to be where I'll get work.
So you're excellent with Photoshop design as well. Do you enjoy that stuff?
Photoshop stuff is fun. Yeah, I find it difficult. It's hard to do sometimes, to come up with something. I need to get into ZBrush, which I don't do right now. Just haven't caught on with the interface, the ZBrush interface. But I have a lot of work sculpting still, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that a lot. So I'd rather stay with that.
And the other hybrid
as I
that
can.
you're really good at is sculptures or partial sculptures, and then taking them into Photoshop and finishing them off, and letting something real dictate what happens in your digital art.
You are kind of a rarity, a jack of all trades, that you can sculpt something, you can photograph it, you can comp it, you can. That's why Steve was heavily involved in my book Worlds, which is available through our big cartel, whatever, studioADI. Look for some link somewhere.
Design Studio Press, right?
Well, they're not selling it anymore.
Okay.
I don't think they're selling it anymore. But I have a whole bunch of books
great.
now, so I can sell.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But Steve was great because he builds miniatures, he does all that stuff, and that was exactly what we were doing with Worlds.
Yeah, it's a great project.
Tell us who else you've worked for.
Well, the one that comes to mind is Rick Baker, because I worked with him on Planet of the Apes and 2 of the Men in Black movies, a couple other ones along the way, Maleficent. Yeah. And that was a great experience. What a great shop to work in. Yeah. And he's really an amazing artist, and ran the shop really well. It was sad to see that place close down.
Yeah, I know.
I kept going back as they would, as they were clearing it out, and then I even went back after they started, demoing the inside. And yeah, it's sad to see.
Benjamin Brown, who's shooting this right now, showed me a picture of. It's now a storage unit.
Yeah.
So it goes from being the mecca of genius practical effects stuff to being.
I remember doing that. I think you might have been with me. We went back to Stan's old shop after they had moved to Van Nuys, and the door was open and they were pulling things down, but you could still see the same wall paint was in there. The whole configuration of the offices was still pretty much left intact, but it was something weird about seeing it all pulled apart and knowing that it was going away forever.
We went back to our old shop that we worked at once, and it
They're
had
still
turned
in the
into
film industry.
They are in the film industry. It turned into a porn packaging, and there were a bunch of ladies putting. It was in the era of VHS, putting VHS tapes, porn, and then we walked out with a stack of freebies, which we threw them immediately in the trash. You had a dream about ADI at one point, like because we're always concerned about the future because it's practical effects. All that. You had a dream about how the building was going to be used. Was that you?
I don't know. Was it
No?
Jeff?
Oh, I thought it was you.
Jeff had some weird dreams
About it turning into a flea market on the weekends, renting it out as a flea market.
Hey.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Cover the overhead. And didn't you also just recently work at K&B?
Yeah, I worked at KMB, working on The Walking Dead and From Dusk Till Dawn, 2 TV shows they're doing.
Sculpting zombies?
Sculpting zombies and other creature-y stuff, yeah.
Yeah, look at that. So some of the greatest effects in movies in the last, how long have you been in the business? 20 years, 25 years?
The first thing I did was in the early 80s, so it's maybe
Good.
30.
Oh, wow.
30.
Okay, so 30 years. And you probably wouldn't recognize his name unless you're looking at credits, except for Starship Troopers. He's not in the credits of Starship Troopers. That's a different story.
Don't know how that happened.
We won't open that can of worms. But Steve has done a ton of great stuff over the years, and we wanted to introduce him to you. Was there anything else about Steve Koch?
It's been great. I have a question. What album came first? Was it Thank God I'm a Country Boy, or was it Rocky Mountain High? That could be another YouTube interview.
Some of the younger viewers might not. I like to explain it all, Tom. He looks like John Denver.
I didn't explain anything unless you're 45 or older.
Thank you, Steve Koch.
All right. Thank you.
It's great having you.
Thank you,
Now
Tom.
get back to work. Make us look good.
All right.